My name is Tom Barton, and I'm 72, and I was diagnosed about 2 years ago, and it was a result of spike in my PSA. Apparently, after you reach certain ages, they'll give you an extra number, and so they wanted me to stay under 60, but 6.0, but I spiked to 8 something, and so they had me going in to have a biopsy. There was denial. Actually, my wife had just come home from work, and I was on my notebook computer sitting down, and the call came in, and she could only hear, yes, I understand, and so forth. And she said, who was that? And I said, that was a urologist. It wasn't even the doctor. It was someone in the office. What did they say? I said, well, I have cancer. And I resumed typing, and she said, are you okay? And I said, yep, which pretty clear sign you're not. And she kept asking me throughout the evening, are you okay? And I gave these abrupt answers. And I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and the overwhelming feeling I had was, gee, I have cancer. And that's the first step when you call it by name. I have a daughter-in-law who's a PhD in psychology, and she worked with oncology patients in West Virginia, so she was one of the first people I turned to for advisement. But she'd already told me that no matter who you are, no matter what your age, no matter what type of cancer, you're probably going to experience denial early on. The first few things he said were Greek to me. Your Gleason score is right. I know Jackie Gleason, but I don't know. Then I asked, when I could ask some questions intelligently, I said, what type of cancer do I have, and so forth. The first really good news I heard him say was we took 12 samples, which I understand is pretty common, and only one was impacted, and he said ever so slightly. So right away my spirits were lifted significantly there. And then he said, I'm sure you'll want to know what types of options you have. I said, well, that's why we're here. And so he gave us the 3 usual ones. There's surgery, surgical removal, watchful waiting, that's a nice little phrase, and then radiation. And he told us right from the very beginning, he said, I am not only an oncologist, but a surgeon. And at age 70, with your Gleason score being as low as it could be and still be at risk, and your type of cancer, which does not tend to roam about the body but tends to stay put, I really couldn't recommend surgical removal, because there are going to be dramatic life changes, leakage, impotence, any number of things that, you know, we weren't excited about hearing at age 70. So I think at that point we'd probably, just from body language, my wife said, well, we don't like that one. So we went home over the weekend talking about watchful waiting and radiation. He wanted to see us by the end of the week. We wanted to obviously look at second opinions and so forth, but we were most interested in radiation. And the good news there is that my daughter-in-law, from her experience back in West Virginia working in an oncology ward, knew a number of people she could contact, and they'd be willing to talk to me, and that was very reassuring. So the first decision we made was we're going to have radiation instead of watchful waiting. We did get a second opinion not only on radiation, but later when we chose rapid arc, we got a second opinion on that too. Because as it turns out, when Dr. Ronson told me he wanted me to be the first to try rapid arc in the valley here, we didn't really know a lot about it, and he recommended that we get a second opinion. You know, when you say second opinion, I'm not sure that's even substantial enough, because what if the 2 opinions disagreed? In my case, someone on the East Coast who didn't even know my doctors out here, and I didn't mention their names, I just gave him the same information, and he came up with the same recommendation. So we were very happy after the second opinion. But what happens, I can only say to myself, what might have happened if they had not been in agreement. The point is, even after the second opinion, I continued to ask people, sometimes seeking them out, sometimes just discovering what they had to say, but all of it tended to point in the same direction. And in my case, it meant, yeah, go to radiation or watchful waiting. I think it's important to point out that Monday to the Thursday, that was a pretty intense 72 hours. And I would say to anyone that as you're pursuing the obvious things like a professional second opinion and so forth, you've got to come to grips with who you are yourself too, because everyone, man, woman, older, younger, type of cancer or not, will tend to process it to the grid of who you are. And I went through that process, and mine will be different from anyone watching this, but I want you to know it's a very real process. I'm a former captain in the Marine Corps, so my first reaction was, well, no matter how bad it might be, I'll tough it out. You know, that's just, you're wired up that way. And some of the things I've been through in the Marine Corps had been very demanding, and I know people who've had chemo, and I know how tough that can be, but I was prepared to go that route if necessary. Fortunately, that was not required. Then again, I have a degree from Harvard, and so the intellectual side took over and said, wait a minute, discretion's a better part of valor here. Let's look at this thing intelligently. The tough side, the intelligent side, they were kind of at war of each other. Then, to be honest with you, I'm also a Christian and have been a pastor. That was really the common denominator to the other two. That was from that point on, all the way through the process, knowing that I had turned this over to God, and tons of people were praying for me. Incredibly fulfilling and gratifying. And I've prayed for people who've had cancer, but now I was the subject, and I can only say, having visited people, that if you don't have the family and the immediate support group, it's still there if you look for it. We live off a golf course, and I would go down to the clubhouse and maybe play golf with some people, and in the course of time, the conversation can turn around to most anything, and I said, yeah, I was just diagnosed with cancer. Somebody said, oh, I had that. Guy didn't even know we were having coffee at the same table, and he said, yeah, I went through that about 3 years ago. So if you just say the word, everybody who understands that, you're like a member of a new fraternity, if you will, when you have cancer. And that comes full circle. Since I've been through the process and been healed, people call me, and or if I hear someone says I was just diagnosed with cancer, I offer information. But that's an extemporaneous form of support group that's not to be overlooked, because people who've been through it, they have credibility immediately. And I found also that once I had finished the process, when I spoke with people about being a cancer survivor, they treated me with a sense of credibility that frankly I never had, going as a pastor to pray for them. Well, fine, but you don't know what I'm going through. Well, now, yeah, I do.